Thursday morning, it's McCollum on Business, and I'm Stephen McCollum. And for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to get you updated on what's happening around the business world and get your morning started, at least on that side of things. And, well, don't check your 401ks here today. I don't know what's going to happen, but all signs are pointing to some negativity as the day goes on. We'll talk about that here coming up, but we're going to look at the market watch stocks we're paying attention to and local and national stories that you need to know as well. So let's not delay it all. Let's get into it with that market watch. Stocks are lower today, not by a ton yet here, right? But we, of course, are still waiting for a lot of information here to come out on the Middle East situation. And, you know, things are ticking up, let's put it that way, between Lebanon and some other countries battling it out. And bombs have started to fall in those areas. So we'll have to pay attention to this. Oil today, well, not going up like it did yesterday. It's kind of holding steady so far, but a lot of signs, obviously, a lot of uncertainty out there. Excuse me while I get the hiccups are out there here early this morning. Dow Jones are down 128 points right now, 50,914 for it. The S&P 500 is down 5 points, 75,91, and they're all kind of coming off of record highs in total here, all of these indexes. The NASDAQ actually is up 1 point here today, 27,088 for it. And then the small cap index, Russell 2K, also up 20 points as well, 2918 for it. And folks, Bitcoin continuing its slide below 70,000 now here today, 68,623 for Bitcoin as it has come back down from that, mid 70s, 78,000 range it was at for a few weeks there. Well, 68,580 here today as that continues to go down. Stocks we are paying attention to. We're going to pay attention to a lot of technology stocks here this morning, and then we're going to throw a retail one in later on. But Marvel Technology is the first stock that we're going to look at here today, 23.88% up right now. What happened here? Well, it's simple. NVIDIA CEO, you know his name, Jensen Huang, he said Marvel could be the next trillion-dollar company. And that vote of confidence from the world's biggest company out there, NVIDIA, well, causing this stock to go up 23% here today as well. That's literally all. That's all that's happened to Marvel Technology as well. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, you know them. They're the information technology stock. It is separate from Hewlett-Packard, the computer maker. They split off a few years ago, but it's up 25.70% here this morning. Hewlett-Packard did post current quarter earnings and revenue guidance that did top the analyst estimates. The company raised its full-year earnings guidance and top consensus expectations as well. So they're up 25.43% here today. And if you're watching us here and not listening to us, well, if you're driving, just keep listening. But if you're looking at the graph there, the stock's come down here since the market opened about 30 minutes ago as well here this morning. And then Alphabet is the next stock we're going to look at. Yeah, isn't it amazing of all the stocks to be up today? Alphabet's one that is down 3.90% here today. Well, you know, Alphabet, Google parent company, YouTube parent company, etc. Well, they say they plan to sell $80 billion in stock, and mainly to help out with cash flow in order to raise funds to continue their AI building out there. Now, that $80 billion does include a $10 billion investment by Berkshire Hathaway. So, of that $80 billion, $10 billion is going to go to Berkshire Hathaway here for Alphabet Inc. Well, selling that much stock dilutes current shareholders. They're down 3.98% here today based off of that news as well. When we come back later on and look at stocks, we're going to look at microchip technology, a company called ST Microelectronics as well. And then we're going to look at, go retail here, Victoria's Secrets in the news as well. We've seen a lot of hit or miss here on retail companies lately, so we'll check in with Victoria's Secret as well and see what they're in the news for coming up later in the program. And so we're just, the war continues to be kind of the big uncertainty on the market. Tariffs are starting to creep back into reasons to start to worry, right? As the North American Free Trade Agreement stuff Negotiations are continuing, and then of course, what's happening around refunds, etc. But so let's get away from that national stuff that we talk about a lot here as well. Talk about things that's going to affect us every day. And well, if you're looking for a Motors high end truck, well, you might want to buy it sooner than later here because you could have a supply issue coming up, which of course will drive prices up because about 1,000 workers at a Michigan supplier plant that makes parts for the General Motors pickup trucks went on strike yesterday. They didn't reach a new contract with the company. Now, the United Auto Workers Union is who this is. They came out on Monday and confirmed workers at an axle and components plant in Three Rivers, Michigan. It's for a company called Dosh Corp, Dauch. Now, this is formerly known as American Axle and Manufacturing Company. So they changed their name here and moved around. But all of these United Auto workers, about 1,000 of them, walked out of the factory and onto the picket lines as of 12:01 a.m. Monday morning. Of course, that's Eastern time. The union has not released a list of demands, but they did say in a press release Sunday night that workers are still trying to regain wages lost during the Great Recession. So they're saying the 2007, 2008, 2009 timeframe. The union said longtime workers who were making as much as $29 an hour, they say that they saw their wages slashed to $14.50 back in 2008. Current wages top out at $22 an hour after a 5 year progression. Yeah, that's a big price cut there, right? And even when it comes back in a 5 year progression, you're still not at that original amount. A spokesperson for Dosh, well, emailed a statement out there to a bunch of entities, and no shocker here. They called the strike disappointing. Well, the union believes GM appears to have about 2 weeks worth of axles in stock for these units. And I'll tell you here, coming up here on what where we're at for inventory, if you were looking at a GM vehicle, a spokesperson for GM said the automaker is closely monitoring the situation. They're also assessing any potential impact the strike will have to their company. As of Monday, production at GM's plants were operating as usual, even though the strike did begin. The impacted plant does produce axles for GM Chevrolet Colorado, GMC Canyon midside pickup trucks, as well as its heavy duty Chevrolet Silverado and GMC Sierra pickup trucks. Other production that they do there, well, it includes smaller components for the light duty Silverado and Sierra pickups, but then it also does Stellantis's Chrysler Pacifica minivan. They do some parts for that also. So Colorado is a big selling mid-sized truck here, and obviously, if you don't have an axle, you don't have a truck. So just keep that in mind here with this strike starting yesterday, and we'll have to see how long that goes on here and affects inventory coming up here for these GM vehicles as well. Now there's a big race there between OpenAI and Anthropic. Anthropic does the Claude AI, which you hear a lot about out there. And big race here to go public between those two companies and obviously SpaceX. SpaceX has that XAI, which has Gronk, of course, as its chatbot. They're all battling to see who can go public first. Well, artificial intelligence company Anthropic, they're moving a step closer here, going public on the markets. Well, they would just started off as a little known, little research laboratory is what they started as, and now they're one of the leading AI companies valued at $965 billion. Well, they said yesterday that they submitted a confidential filing with the U.S. Security and Exchange Commission. It's all for a proposed initial public offering of its common stock. Now, just because you do the confidential filing doesn't mean you go public, but it is the first step to getting to that point. Market conditions and other things go into effect, go into whether you do keep going public after the confidential filing. Now, on top of that, Anthropic last week, they said it raised $65 billion in private funding. And that's where they get that $965 billion valuation. and that's a huge number because they're only 5 years old, right? Claude chatbot's 5 years old now, and they're already at that valuation. And they're one of the world's most valuable startup companies at this point. Now, Anthropic not only is one of the most valuable startups ever, but they're also way ahead of its chief rival, which is ChatGPT maker OpenAI, who's also trying to go public here to beat that staunch and trying to raise money. Well, Claude and well, Anthropic is not only better in market value and on their reported revenue, but also to get the first one to become that publicly traded company. Anthropic said it's now making annualized revenue of $47 billion from selling its technology to people and organizations using that Claude chatbot to write code and do other work and personal tasks on their behalf. Anthropic was formed back in 2021. And it was formed, interesting enough, right? Gronk, obviously an ex OpenAI leader there with Elon Musk. But Anthropic, also ex OpenAI leaders, formed this company and everything. So they're all expected to become publicly traded here over the next year. We know SpaceX is coming up this year. Now, Anthropic also is going to head that way as well. There's the problem, right? They're making $47 billion per year in revenue based off of people using the Claude chatbot. Yeah, but they're still losing money more than they make. All three, OpenAI and SpaceX, losing more money than they bring in still today. So obviously, there's a big concern of an AI bubble when that's happening, and a lot of experts, I guess we'll call them, people smarter than me. They're saying here that this reminds them of the internet boom back in the was that the Bill Clinton days back in the late 90s, where people are just throwing money at these even though they're not making money, and it's going to be a big crash on that side. We'll have to wait and see if that happens, but that is fears out there as well. And this is a follow up story since we're talking about artificial intelligence and these you know, tech companies out there. Well, Meta is coming out with the announcement. We know they've been in hot water with the governments on their protection of teens and young people on their sites. Well, Meta is officially expanding its content settings for those teen accounts on Instagram, Facebook, and on Messenger. Now they're doing it globally now. They tried a few countries to start off with, but obviously they're trying to ensure age appropriate experiences for the younger users. And there's a lot of scrutiny on these companies, specifically Meta, on child health and safety concerns. The initiative was initially launched in select countries last October. It sought to prevent children from accessing inappropriate content. Meta also announced a new feature on Instagram designed to diversify content seen by teens and even prevent repetitive exposure to certain themes. That was what we talked about back in September, October when they announced this. And this all stems from like the EU going after them for the protections on the minors, and then the US kind of jumping on that bandwagon as well. Here, just a month or so ago in April, Meta warned investors that legal and regulatory blowback in the European Union and the US over that use social media issues, quote, could significantly impact our business and financial results. So, if you remember in that big trial here earlier this year, it was end of February, March timeframe. This is the one over in Los Angeles. Jury found Meta and Alphabet's Google negligent for designing social media platforms that are harmful to young people. This was the one that the plaintiffs were awarded a combined $6 million. That was that 20-year-old woman who said that she became addicted to social media as a child. And then Meta said 13 plus content settings, which filter out content deemed inappropriate for teens, is the default if you set up the teen account. But then they also have announced a limited content setting that offers even more restrictive experiences. It'll be made available on Facebook and Messenger later this year for so you can even restrict it even more if you'd like to as a parent out there. Instagram is testing a new feature to limit teens from seeing excessive amounts of certain types of content and to promote a more balanced feed. So basically, what they're saying there is, you know, things on like body size, like weightlifting and you're too puny type of stuff, and how to cope with anxiety. You're still the teens are still gonna see that stuff, but they're not gonna just be fed constantly it. So they get a little, you know, dialed into what a perfect body looks like, et cetera, and stuff to that effect on these teen accounts moving forward. And I would argue they should do that for everybody, even adults. I don't need to see 7,000 in a row about how unhealthy I am. I get it. Hey, we got to move on here to just some more devastating news out there. It's kind of good news, bad news here. Obviously, bad news if you're one of these people and you're struggling with credit card debt out there, and a lot of people are. It's at levels not seen in more than a decade. The good news is we'll have at the end of this story, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being generous saying it's good news out there, but the percentage of credit card balances that were at least 90 days past due, well, it rose to 13.1% in the first quarter. We get all this information from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. So it was at 13.1% in the first quarter. Well, that's up from 12.3% just a year ago. And it's the highest quarterly reading since 2011. Americans collectively owe more than $1.25 trillion dollars in credit card debt. The share of balances that are seriously delinquent, though, they've surged from about 8% at around early 2023. So that's 5 percentage point jump roughly over the past 3 years. It is steeper than the rise seen between 2007 and 2010. That was the peak of these bad numbers. That was when 13.7% of credit card balances were at least 90 days late. So the problem is rising overdue balances. They've coincided with the highest interest rates out there that we've seen in a lot of years out there. So that means carrying this credit card debt a lot more expensive the more you sit on it. The average credit card interest rate stood at 21% in February. That's up from around 14.5% in February of 22. That was before the Federal Reserve began raising the interest rates. But the increase in seriously delinquent balances, well, and this, I said, kind of might be good news here as well. So the increase in seriously delinquent balances may not be driven by the wave of new borrowers falling behind. Now, the New York Fed found, and this is, like I said, good news, bad news situation. You don't want to see this, but the good news is new people aren't going delinquent. It seems to be that the New York Fed found that the share of credit card balances that become newly delinquent is little changed from a year earlier. All that does is suggest the recent trend may reflect deepening strain among borrowers who were already struggling, and it's not going into people that weren't in that category before as well. So that's the good news, bad news, right? We don't want to see anybody struggling on this stuff, but it's not going into more and more people as it goes on as well. And hey, shoppers glide. Speaking of credit cards, get them ready, folks. Yeah, Amazon has announced, well, when they plan to offer its Prime customers those mega deals, they're going to do it early this year. They're going to. I saw a quote and it said, "Well, people want discounts, and we're going to get them their discounts earlier this year." And it's all because higher fuel costs, straining shoppers' budgets. Amazon thinks they're going to get you these deals early, so you get them sooner, right? Coming up, they're like the Santa Claus of shipping. Well, they announced their annual Prime Day event will kick off on June 23rd. It's going to be 4 days. It's going to run through June 26th as well, here as well. So another 4 years. Normally, this is held in July. They're moving it up to the end of June. Now, a lot of factors go into this. World Cup, the America Freedom 250 or whatever we're calling that, right? The 250th anniversary of America coming up. So that's why they're moving this date up a little bit as well. The last time Amazon held its Amazon Prime Day, it was in June, was back in 2021. They said that they're taking into account the World Cup, the 250th anniversary of American independence. So that's why they moved it into June to kind of, and the World Cup will be going on at that time, starts June 11th. That's why they put it at that time frame. And then they said, or gas prices, people need a break. Going to give them to them early, type of stuff, and they're quoting here as well. Last year, Amazon said it had the biggest Prime Day event ever, though it didn't disclose year over year growth. They just said it, and we're all supposed to believe it, I guess, right? From that perspective. And folks, we'll keep it rolling here as well. And you want to stay tuned at the end of the show. If you just like early morning, hanging out at bars, watching stuff, and hanging out with people, well, some changes are coming across the country. Not in Arizona yet, but other parts of the country. So we'll talk about that coming up. But of course, local stories coming your way when we come back. Plus another look at the market watch and stocks we're paying attention to. So come on back. It's McCollum on Business, Tuesday edition. And we're back here, McCollum on Business. You just saw the ad there for The Real Matrix. Every Friday at noon, new episodes come out. Last week's episode was kind of on Charlie Kirk situation there with the assassination. It's a four-part, roughly 4 to 5 part Charlie Kirk coverage here with things surrounding Turning Point USA and those entities there as well. Another episode coming out this Friday at noon, of course. Comes out live on demand Rumble time at noon on Fridays. Rumble.com/user/TME media. And then, of course, free podcast system. I know a lot of people enjoy listening to that show there on the free podcast systems. Check that out on your favorite podcast system. On Just search The Real Matrix, Angry Fan or Angry Patriot, excuse me. You can find that there for you. And I stumbled because I kept saying podcast systems like nonstop there, and it got in my head a little bit. Of course, all of our programming is on demand from the main event to this show, McCollum on Business, to the pit stop, the Real Matrix, all there on Rumble on demand for you. Then, of course, everything except for the Real Matrix is over on YouTube as well, where you can catch us live every morning, 7 a.m. That we're here. Of course, there, TME Media AZ is where our live programming is. Everything's on demand there except for the Real Matrix as well. Of course, Pit Stop comes out on Wednesdays for you. New episode this week where we talk about IndyCar and NASCAR racing. New episode coming out tomorrow for you as well. On demand, around 1:30, 2 o'clock is when it comes out for you there on Rumble and, of course, on YouTube. But you want to follow either the Rumble page or the YouTube page. Free stuff there. We're going to have some new stuff coming your way as well here over the summer. It's going to be good to be part of that World Cup stuff coming up as well. We're playing with the idea of the movie movie review show. We're working on that format. That'll just be pumped out there on YouTube as well. So you want to follow that YouTube page and everything. And, of course, live programming with this show and the main event from 8 to 10 a.m. live there on YouTube as well. TME Media AZ. And, folks, of course, all the shows have their own podcasts as well, except for this one here. So the pit stop, search for that if you'd rather listen to the podcast, catch it on YouTube. Or, of course, their main event, same situation. Search the main event with Steven or main event with Dale. It pops up for you. Follow all the shows on social media except for this one and The Real Matrix, only two without social media. At this time, this one does have it set up and it's ready to go. Got some things coming up here to help us grow that social media presence as well as we'll see. We'll get some more info to you here on how this show is going to go as well. We're looking forward to working with someone to help us do some different things here on this business show that you should start seeing here in the next few weeks. A little bit of changes, and that's for the better, folks out there as well. And with all that being said, let's get right back into that market watch. Stocks have fallen today, sliding from the record highs out there. Well, all except for the Russell 2K is the only one that is still up here. Dow Jones is down the 83 points. The S&P 500 is down the 2 points still from earlier. Then you got the Nasdaq down 8 points here today. And then the Russell 2K, the only one that's positive here still, 17 points up for the small cap index. And then Bitcoin continuing its slide even as our show goes on here, down to 67,715 as of right now. Bitcoin in a slide was 78,000 just at the end of last week and over the weekend, falling and continuing it here in the first 2 days of this week as well. Out there, stocks we are paying attention to here in this segment: microchip technology. There's semiconductor stock. They're up 4.44% here today as well. They released revenue information for its data center solutions business unit. That unit alone generated $302.7 million in revenue in 2025. Microchip sees the top line growing by about 65% this calendar year. That is huge top line growth there for Microchip technology. Revenue for the quarter ending March 2026 was up 62.9% from the prior year's quarter. They're up 4.53% right now here on the market. They were up higher earlier, coming down a little bit. People selling it off as we have a general sell off going around the market here today as well. ST Microelectronics is the next company that we are going to look at as well. Well, they're a semiconductor company. They're up 13.81% right now. The company raised its revenue ambition for their data centers to about $1 billion here in 2026. Well, the forecast of nicely above $500 million is what they said previously. So raising that ambition here for data centers, about $500 million to that $1 billion mark. ST Microelectronics Company, they're up 13.95% with that revenue, at least with that guidance anticipation here on that data center side of things. And now let's get out of the tech stocks. That's all we've covered here today. And let's get to Victoria's Secret. Let's go retail. They raised their full year guidance. They beat fiscal first quarter earnings expectations, cited tariff, lower tariff costs is what they specifically cited. I brought up tariffs earlier in the show as we're starting to see some of these retailers say tariff costs lower, bigger revenue and quarter expectations and yearly expectations for a lot of these retailers. 47.85% up Victoria's Secret is today based off of this news. They're now anticipating full year sales between 7.03 and $7.13 billion. That's up from a previous range of between 6.85 and $6.95 billion. Huge movement here on their full year guidance. Lower tariff costs, folks, as well. So 47.33% up for Victoria's Secret here today. Are we going to start to see that on more retailers? Is kind of the question that we got here. It's something to keep an eye on as we continue through the the tariff situation that everything is on here today as well, or in this time frame, I should say, as we go forward. Hey, now let's get into some local stories that we're looking at. And today, June 2nd, well, Phoenix is celebrating its third annual 602 Day, folks. If you're sitting around the house, kids are bored, you need something to do, there are deals out there in the Phoenix area because of 602 Day. There's more than 350 discounts, deals, and family activities. They're available across Greater Phoenix in honor of the city's first and most historic area code, of course, being 602. It's the largest showing of vendors for this event in its 3 year history ever. Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego, she says 602 Day is a great way to create culture and boost traffic to local businesses at the start of the summer. If you don't know, because we get hot, right? People don't come here as much. June is typically a slower month for these small businesses. And 602 Day is kind of made to give them a boost out there as well. So if you're sitting at home right now going, what am I going to do with these kids? We're a few days into summer vacation. They're already driving me nuts. Been sitting around the house a lot. Well, go and look at the map here. It is today with all the deals and events. It's 602day.com is the map you can look at here for what you got coming up here, what you should, go do today with the little kids. Or even if it's for you, go grab some discounted ice cream. Ice cream on sale, I guess we could say. And then June is also Pride Month, as you should know. If you follow social media, you would know that. the amount of the amount of posts yesterday was a lot yesterday on this. But here's the problem: the organization that produces Arizona's largest LGBTQ plus cultural celebration, they filed for bankruptcy officially now. The history of the Phoenix Pride goes back to 1981 gay rights march through downtown Phoenix to the state capitol. But, well, now we got court records showing that the nonprofit corporation, they have between zero and $50,000 in its coffers. The Phoenix Pride also has about $430,000 in debt. Now, most of the total of the debt is folded into that breach of contract lawsuit filed by Pride Group LLC. They allegedly have not been paid for providing certain event management services during the Phoenix Pride Festival that occurred last October as well. So, this is happening all throughout the country as well. These Pride organizations are filing for bankruptcy with large debts and things, and not just happening here in Arizona, but it is happening throughout the country as well. And then here's a story for you. Now we're going to go national here, get at least United States national here. But we know the World Cup is starting. Starts June 11th here coming up, so we're right around the corner, and that's where you want to follow Media AZ if you're a football fan. Going to be doing some coverage there on directly onto the YouTube page as well. We're not going to do a show about it. We'll just do some coverage on the YouTube page. But, well, a growing number of U.S. cities, you won't have an issue finding a well poured pint or just to hang out with people to watch these games for any of these late light matches that do happen. And I'm telling you all of this because, well, a lot of people travel during the summer. You might be in the East Coast or someplace else and want to watch some World Cup games out there. Well, state leaders across the U.S. are signing off on extending bar and restaurant hours during the World Cup, which is the world's most watched sporting event that occurs. Of course, everybody's trying to help businesses and improve fan experiences, especially because pricing has gotten so expensive here for tickets. Everybody's going to be flocking to places to experience it with like-minded football fans. There's also people viewing this as a last-ditch effort to boost sales because of the World Cup economic boon that was expected. Well, it's kind of dampered. Like hotels in cities hosting games aren't selling hotels like they thought they would. I saw a story a few weeks ago in Kansas City. I don't know if it's still the case, but actually their hotel revenue and the hotel bookings, they're less for their World Cup games because they're getting games there. It's worse in that time frame than it would have been just a normal Kansas City summer out there. So, right, spur up and help out the restaurants and bars out there as well. So here's where we got so far for those of you traveling this summer and want to catch a game. Kansas, Missouri, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Washington. They're either hosting World Cup matches or they're adjacent to them hosting it. They've all approved various measures to extend hours for alcohol sales during the World Cup. Similar proposals are being considered over in New York and Massachusetts as well. The change means that closing time, for instance, in Philadelphia, it won't be until 4 a.m. during the World Cup and America 250 celebrations. By now, I believe it's 2 a.m. in Philadelphia. In Kansas City, some bars can stay open as late as 5 a.m. in Kansas City. Yeah. Now, these changes are dependent on municipality approvals. No business would be required to extend their business hours. They're just saying they have an option to do it as well. But the hospitality industry, they're already struggling. Waning sales, inflation hurting them as well. People not being able to eat out and stuff because of pricing. Yeah, the option to stay open later is welcomed by that community. And now, some places are like, we can't do it. We don't have enough labor to open up later, and things to that effect. So it is going to be a bit of miss there. But if you're traveling this summer, catch a late night game and want to stay out later, or of course, America 250 celebrations there, might have some options there to be out later with celebration with all of your friends out there as well, folks. And here on this Tuesday edition of McCollum on Business, appreciate you joining us. We'll be back tomorrow on Wednesday. Just a programming note, we will be off on Thursday here, just McCollum on Business. I do have a personal thing I got to take care of in the morning that I can't to change the time or anything. So we'll be off on Thursday here, McCollum on Business. Be back on Friday, but we'll be here tomorrow as well, Wednesday at 7 a.m. The main event here all week, and main event coming up live here 8 to 10 a.m. On Thursday. Just so you know, Dale Hellestray and Uncle Lou will bring you the show on Thursday as well. So still getting Uncle Lou this week. So come and join them on Thursday. But we'll see you tomorrow, Wednesday, 7 a.m. Have a great Tuesday night, everyone.